we're going to talk about finding an equation to represent our lines from graphs. So I'm going to start by making a table to put the ordered pairs represented on our graph. So right here, I can see that this is at the origin, which is 0, 0. So I'm going to go ahead and put that right there. That lets me know right now that it is a multiplicative graph. So it's going to be in the form of y equals kx. Okay, with k being the thing we're multiplying by. So I'm going to start by looking at the graph, and I see that right here, this is 2, and then my y-coordinate would have to be this right here. And what would that be? That's going to be 5/10, okay, or a half. So for this, I'm going to write 2, and I'm going to write 5/10. Now, looking at this next one, I have 4 and 1, and I'm going to come over here and do 8 and 2. So what are we noticing that's happening? It's multiplicative. So what I have to do is I need to know, what am I multiplying by x to get to y? Okay, I'm multiplying by something. Now notice that it's getting smaller. Well, that means I'm multiplying by a fraction. Okay, what could I say? Because I can tell you're probably going, you're dividing by 4. I am dividing by 4, but what's a way to say I'm multiplying if I'm dividing by 4? Dividing is the same thing as multiplying by your reciprocal. So I'm actually multiplying by 1/4. Okay, so that will be my equation. That's going to help me get that equation of y equals 1/4 x. I'm going to do the same thing on this graph, and I can actually see, again, it's multiplicative, and it's proportional. That's another way to say it, because it goes through the origin. So I'm going to list my coordinates. I have 0, 0, and then I'm going to look at the x and y axis to see what they're counting by. And so it looks like the x axis is by 1s. It's just that it labeled every other one. And then it looks like the y-axis is counting by 10s or by 5s, but they labeled 10s, so I can still figure out what they are. So this coordinate right here would be 115, 230, 345. So from there, I can figure out what this would be. What am I doing each time? Well, each time I am multiplying by 15. So that means my equation is going to be y equals 15x. Now, is this graph multiplicative and proportional? No, it's not, because it doesn't go through the origin. So I already know it's going to be additive, so we're going to put it in the form of y equals x plus b, with b being that y-intercept that we've talked about. So looking at that, where it hits the y-axis, that's what the y-intercept is, and that's right here. So that means my x-coordinate is 0, and my y-coordinate is 5. Now, if I look to see what this is talking about, it's talking about our cost of groceries and then the total cost for a pickup service. So if it's $0, it's $5 for your total cost. Now I'm going to look for points on the graph. So right here, this would be 10, 15. Then I've got 20, 25. And I think that that's probably enough for me to figure out the equation, but I'm going to go ahead and put another one just because. So I have 30, 35. And remember, we talked about if it's not multiplying by anything, it's just x plus b, then whatever I'm adding by each time, that's what my y-intercept is. I'm just adding plus 5, plus 5, plus 5. So my equation is going to be y equals x plus 5. So what that means is the cost of groceries plus $5 is your total cost. Okay, let's see if we can do this one. So this is by 1s right here, and then these are 10s. So looking at this first ordered pair, I'm going to go with that's 1, and that's halfway in between 20 and 30, so that would be 25. So I'm going to say 125. And actually, let me back up from there. It goes through the origin, so it's 0, 0, then 125. Essentially, because it goes through the origin and it's proportional, I can actually already tell you what I'm multiplying by. Because 1 times what is 25? 25. But just to show you, I've got 250, 375, and that again shows me that my equation, it's in the form of y equals kx because it's proportional, it's multiplicative, it goes through the origin. So that's going to be y equals 25x. That means I'm going to multiply my 25 times my x value to get to my y. Is this multiplicative or additive? Well, it does not go through the origin, so it is additive. It is going to be in the form of y equals x plus b, b being the y-intercept. So I know that when my x is 0, my y is right here in between the 0 and the 1, so that is 1/2 or 0.5. So that would be 0.5. When I have 1, it's 1.5. 2 would be 2.5. So what is happening each time? Remember I said that whatever you're adding by is what your y-intercept is. And I am adding 5/10 each time because that's my y-intercept. So my equation is going to be y equals x plus 5/10. Or I could say y equals x plus 1/2. Now I want to talk about going from a table to an equation. So what I have to do is I need to figure out what's going on from my x value to my y value. Okay, so I need to know what am I doing. Now from 6 to 1 2/10, if I'm subtracting, okay, I could say, well, what's 6 minus 1 2/10? That's 4 8/10. So if I was subtracting, okay, then I would have to be saying 6 minus 4 8/10 is 1 2/10. So then 8 minus 4 8/10, because I want them to all be doing the same thing, is 3 2/10. Well, that's not what I got here. So I'm not subtracting. So I'm either multiplying or dividing, which I can write in both ways. So if I'm multiplying, how can I figure out what I'm multiplying by? Well, 6 times something is 1 2/10. So I can do 1 2/10 divided by 6, and I'm going to get 2/10. So that means I'm multiplying it by 2/10. So I need to double check that that works here too. So I'm going to do 8 times 2/10 and see if I get 1 6/10. And 8 times 2 is 16. 1 decimal point. Yep, that works. Same here. I'm multiplying by 2/10. So that means my equation is going to be y equals 2/10 x. Okay, now this next one I'm looking, and it looks like I'm probably not multiplying. It looks like I could be adding. So what am I adding from 23 to 28? That's plus 5. What about 34 to 39? Yep, plus 5, plus 5, plus 5. So that means it is an additive relationship, and my equation is going to be y equals x plus 5. Okay, this next one. Just looking at that, I can see that I'm dividing by 4, aren't I? Yeah, I can see that 20 divided by 4 is 5, 28 divided by 4 is 7. So yes, I could say I am doing y equals x divided by 4. But I can also, I want to write it in the form of y equals kx. So what could I say I'm multiplying by? I can say I'm actually multiplying by 1/4 because 5 divided by 20 is 1/4. So I'm going to say that my equation is y equals 1/4 x. Or I could have said y equals 25/100 x. If I multiply all of them by 25/100, I'm going to get the y coordinate. Okay, this next one I need to see if it's additive or multiplicative. If I think it's multiplicative, that means something 2 1/10 times something is 7 6/10. So if I did 7 6/10 divided by 2 1/10, I'm going to get 3.619 blah, 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 blah. Probably not that. Maybe I'm adding something. So to figure that out, I'd have to subtract 7 6/10 minus 2 1/10. And when I do that, I'm going to get 5 5/10. So I'm thinking maybe I'm adding 5 5/10, but let's test it out with the other ones. If I add these together, yep, I'm going to get 8 75/100. If I add 5 5/10 to 5 5/10, yes, I get 11. So my equation is going to be y equals x plus 5 5/10. I hope that this has helped some.